Zedric Clark, Health Mythbuster here, today with one of my friends, Jeffrey Smith, who is also a Mythbuster on the genetically modified food scene. Jeffrey, thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Jeffrey, I'd like to know, in particular, what health myths in the groups that you speak to do you hear most commonly, and what is the best response for somebody like me who wants to let people know why that is simply a myth on genetically modified foods? How can I communicate that to them in a way that they will easily understand how to get the accurate information?
All right. Well, the first myth that I want to dispel in the beginning, and it helps people become receptive to the truth, and that is that the FDA does not do testing on GMOs. They don't require testing on GMOs. They have abdicated their role as protecting the public. Now, what's interesting is that when you look at documents made public from a lawsuit, the overwhelming consensus among the scientists working at the FDA in 1991 and 92 was that genetically modified foods were dangerous and could lead to allergies, toxins, new diseases, and nutritional problems. They urged their superiors to require long-term study, but the White House had instructed the FDA to promote biotechnology, so the FDA recruited Monsanto's former attorney, Michael Taylor. Monsanto's the big biotech company, and Michael Taylor oversaw the policy. He was in charge of policy for the FDA. So his policy falsely claimed that the agency wasn't aware of any information showing that GMOs were different. And on that basis, no testing or labeling was necessary. So it was a complete corporate takeover of the regulatory mechanism, an abdication of their role, and an ignoring of science and scientists.
Well, let me ask you this question, Jeffrey. This is one that I know has come up to me, is that genetically modified foods will feed the world. They will help our food supply and those who are less fortunate in other countries. How can you respond to that?
The PR firms of the biotech industry came up with this years ago to try and get people in developed countries to feel guilty for criticizing or stopping GMOs. But the scientists in the world who are independent of the biotech industry don't believe that for 1 second. In fact, the most comprehensive evaluation of how to feed the world, which is called the ISTAD report, which was sponsored by the United Nations and the World Health Organization and UNICEF and whatnot, and signed on by 58 countries, took several years. It's over 2,500 pages and over 400 scientists contributed. They determined that the current generation of GMOs has nothing to offer feeding the hungry world, eradicating poverty, or establishing sustainable agriculture. In fact, GMOs work against feeding a hungry world because they take resources away from the more appropriate technologies.
Okay, I understand. Another one that I hear out there with GMOs is that these are something that we have been doing for hundreds of years. I remember when I was in grade school, we would study peas and how these things were genetically altered and how we would mix different types of peas to get certain qualities and traits. Isn't this what GMOs are?
Genetic engineers have taken spider genes and put them into goats in the hopes that they can milk the goat to get spiderweb protein to make bulletproof vests. That is not something that our grandfathers have done or could have done with the tools available to them. You can take a spider and a goat and put them in the same room and put the lights down low and play some music, serve some wine, but you're not going to get them to have babies. However, you can steal the genes out of the DNA of one species, humans, viruses, whatever, and force them into the DNA of other species in a laboratory technique that bears no resemblance to sexual reproduction. And this is the key. It is completely different. It is not natural. It introduces unique risks, according to the FDA scientists and others. And the biotech industry wants us to feel comfortable with genetic engineering by saying it's just an extension of natural breeding, and they claim it's more precise, where in fact the process of gene insertion plus cloning of the cell into a plant causes hundreds or thousands of mutations up and down the DNA and can lead to higher levels of allergens, toxins, etc., just as warned about by the FDA.
Well, so what you're saying then, and what I understand here, is that one, genetically modified foods may not be as safe and as regulated as we once believed. Second of all, you're saying that, from what I understand, and also I agree with the fact that genetically modified foods cannot solve the world's hunger problem. From my perspective, I see there's plenty of food in the world. It's how to get it to the people who need it most. And last but not least, in terms of this being a natural evolution, so to speak, of nature, this is not that at all, but it's something that is our heavy-handed work that is forcing this into the actual gene of another plant that is completely unrelated.
Well, those are some of the main myths. The other myths, and you did a great job, the other myths are that it's supposed to increase yield. It doesn't increase yield. It actually lowers average yield.
Wow.
That it will reduce agricultural chemicals. It actually increases agricultural chemicals over 400 million pounds in the first 16 years. That it increases farmer income on average. That's not true. Some farmers increase their income, some farmers reduce their income, but on average there's no difference. And that it's safe. And we know now that there are thousands of doctors prescribing non-GMO diets, reporting that their patients get better when they take them off of GMOs. There are farm animals and pets that also improve dramatically when they switch from GM soy or corn to non-GM soy and corn. The American Academy of Environmental Medicine looked at all the animal feeding studies and said there's so much dangers in the lab animals that have been fed GMOs, every doctor should prescribe non-GMO diets. And many of the same diseases and disorders that are seen in the lab animals are improving in the humans that get rid of GMOs, same with the livestock, and are on the rise in the U.S. population since GMOs were introduced. And if you look at the research studies, I mean, the most recent one was a 2-year study with Monsanto's Roundup Ready corn. And not only was it the Roundup Ready corn that caused massive tumors, early death, and organ damage, but even feeding the rats just small amounts of Roundup in the drinking supply without any genetically modified corn caused the same thing. So the biotech industry uses tobacco science to rig their research. They distort or deny evidence. They attack researchers that discover problems, and it is a very large deception that is causing enormous problems, probably millions of deaths over the long term, and something we should avoid. To avoid GMOs, go to nongmoshoppingguide.com or download the iPhone application Shop No GMO. To learn more about GMOs, go to responsibletechnology.org, and you can sign up for the free newsletter, sign up for the speaker training, and there's plenty of free videos and audios and articles on that site.
Well, thanks a lot, Jeffrey, for speaking with us today, and I really urge everybody to go to some of the sites that he's talked about. Not only that, check out the book Genetic Roulette and the new movie, because both of those will give you very good insight into the research that seems to not have been reviewed by any scientists, because otherwise genetically modified foods would not be as prevalent as they are in society, especially American society today. Thanks a lot, and we hope to ask you some more questions here down the road, Jeffrey.
Thank you so much.